Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. So, Dr. Nick and I are doing a really fun collaboration here because he gets to talk about his favorite thing, which is self-love, but in a really interesting context today. And this conversation is stimulated by a couple of clients that we've worked with in the past, and essentially as we grew our knowledge base and we started to really dive into the depths of the mental, emotional, psychosomatic aspects of disease, there was a light bulb that went off when it came to the condition ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is a neurodegenerative disease. So, for those of you that are here right now because you're interested in understanding more about neurodegenerative disease, stick around. So, if you are looking just to understand why does the neurological system, the brain degenerate, this could be MS, this could be ALS, this could be Alzheimer's, dementia, the list goes on. That you're going to gain a lot of insight about the general understanding of neurodegenerative disease, but we're going to be talking a little bit heavily on ALS just because there's some really interesting things that we've seen that, in my opinion, no one is talking about. Even doctors that are calling themselves the experts of ALS. So, we had a couple of clients in the past that the theme that we saw in their testing with the diagnosis, they had the diagnosis of ALS. We saw cyanide toxicity. And when you get into researching cyanide toxicity, this is thought to be a pretty rare exposure, toxic exposure. And, the main way you would get exposed is if you worked in an environment that was producing, handling cyanide. And so, of course, the research junkies that we are, one of the main things that contains cyanide is going to be gunpowder. So, if you were a cop, if you had a hobby of hunting or going to shooting ranges, these were questions that we would ask to try to decipher, like, where the heck does this come from? And there would be some of the clients that would say, oh, yeah, well, I was a police officer, or, some situation where they're like, maybe it was that. But then there were others that are like, I don't freaking know. And at that point, we didn't know either, but it was a matter of let's get the cyanide out of the body. But then there was an interesting twist by a company called Fry Labs. They are a lab, they process different types of testing specifically associated with neurodegenerative disease. And in the study that they did many years ago, they found that there was a very specific connection to multiple sclerosis and fungi being in the cerebral spinal fluid. So literally I don't remember exactly what the participants, like the amount of participants, but I know that it was over 1,000. And they found the fungi in 100% of the MS patients. When it came to ALS, which was the other part of the study, they found algae in the cerebral spinal fluid as what they presume to be the cause of the neurodegenerative onset. So, interesting enough is if you look at the research of the algae, it's a blue green algae, also known as cyanobacteria. And as the cyanobacteria gets into the body and it starts to mess with your metabolic processes, and there's nitrogen and all these amino acids and these different interactions that happen, is it can actually yield cyanide in the body, in the bloodstream, which could then make its way into the brain. So there was a very big connection to, yes, in some situations, maybe these clients were exposed to cyanide from an environmental exposure, but most of them that had the cyanide in their system, it was actually coming from the algae that they were exposed to that was then creating the byproduct of cyanide. So this was definitely just a huge aha moment. And in reality, conventional medicine stops there of like, oh my God, like this is revolutionary. But the thing is that in our practice, not everyone who had ALS got better. And obviously that's heartbreaking for us as practitioners because we want to do our best to eradicate the root cause. We want to eradicate the algae out of the body. We want to clear the cyanide. We want to get the liver working better. We want to get the brain regenerating. We try our best to do these things. And of course, in those situations, the type of doctors that we are, we sat back and said, shit, like, what did we miss? What more could we have done? And it wasn't a quick answer by any means. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I figured it out. It was honestly kind of years down the line, and we had this light bulb moment of and it was partly there was another practitioner who yielded some of this information, and then it kind of spiraled from our own research, and it was talking about neurodegeneration, ALS in particular, being associated with a lack of like self-love. And essentially it's the nice guy syndrome, being nice, putting everyone before yourself, which is being the message being received by the brain, by the mind, is self-betrayal. And so this is why I was very excited to talk about this because with Dr. Nick, because I think Dr. Nick talks about this a lot. And I honestly, for me, it was even really hard to click. And he's just like, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is love ourselves more. And one, there's the convoluted idea of romantic love. And I think a lot of us don't really know what the fuck does that mean, self-love.
There's two types of love.
Okay.
There's there's the value-centered love, which is the love when somebody serves what's most important to you, your highest values. We perceive that as them showing an act of love. Or when we do something for ourselves that's congruent with our highest values, that's us self-loving through the value-centered love.
Hmm.
That love is contingent on us perceiving that our highest values are being served. The other type of love is unconditional love. That's not contingent. Unconditional love is actually present in every single moment of our lives. Unconditional love is understanding that everything is in a state of balance. And when we perceive everything in a state of balance and we feel that, that's when we feel grateful. That's when we feel, have the tears of gratitude. That's when we feel just that pure love that can't be broken. That's unconditional love. And the fun thing about that, actually just recorded yesterday, um, but there's a scientific process that can get us to experience that unconditional love whenever we want, which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. Um,
Well, I 100% want to get into that, but what I want to preface with is I want to preface with like, what does this look like to not love yourself? Because I think that this is something that not a lot of people understand. And we can only we can only improve upon things that are in our awareness. And there are not many people that are going to walk around and be like, I hate myself. Like, I don't know, maybe, but, some people might say that playfully and say, like, oh, I hate myself in this moment, or, I just hate where I'm at in my life. But, they're not necessarily putting two together how certain ways they show up or don't show up are actually being received by the mind, the body, the brain as self-betrayal or guilt and shame, etc. And I think the probably the biggest thing, and I want to hear from you about it too, is this idea of putting people pleasing you know, I understand the analytical reason for people pleasing is we want to be part of a community. We want to feel like we have that collaboration and camaraderie. So analytically, it makes perfect sense why we would want to people please. But I think at the end of the day, if we ever took a step back, we realize that if you are in a relationship where you need to people please to be liked, it's not a great relationship, number one. And number two is deep down, you still feel like shit, even though you quote unquote have that community. And then I think the
Yeah.
other thing is the idea of, and
Got a long list of
this,
questions here, girl.
yeah, but the other thing is very similar. And I think this is a huge topic for I don't want to say mothers. I think the mothers, it's a little bit more intense, but parents, it's like putting yourself last. You know how many people have come to us and they would never invest in their own health, but they will spend so much money on their kids. And at the end of the day, you can spin that however you want. You could just say, oh, this is the only amount of money we have, blah, blah, whatever, however you want to justify it. That is being perceived as you're not worth it. You're not good enough. It is an act against loving yourself enough that you know that you should take care of yourself just as much as your kid. So the point I'm making is that it doesn't look the way we think. Like this isn't the suicidal teenager who says to his friend, I hate myself, or she says, I hate myself. This is so many people that are willing to put themselves on the back burner for for others and even just for success. Good luck, Nick.
There was like 17 questions mixed with some. Yeah, this is great. I'm so
This is
excited right now.
great.
So let's start at the very beginning. Why don't
Okay.
rewind 20 minutes ago? Uh, you gave a lot of examples of what it may look like for somebody not to give themselves love. I think the question was, what does it look like to not give yourself love?
Yes.
Well, when you think about true optimal health is a state of zero stress.
Hmm.
So there's no stress on the system. And when there's no stress on the system, all there is love. So what does it look like to not have love? Well, that's when, if you want to geek out, that's when we actually drop back into the world of duality and we become split. And so what does that split look like? Well, that looks like, holding on to anger and resentment, doing this, every single um, aspect of disease is literally how far away from love are you? And that will equal the degree of the disease. So, how does it look to not have love?
Oof,
Well,
that's like a mic drop, dude.
that's what it looks like. The degree of your sickness is congruent to the degree of lack of love. And
And you're
it's
saying lack of
it's not that that's
love,
a
not
bad thing.
necessarily just for yourself, but just generally, like lack of love inward, outward, or both, like, or one.
It's actually the exact same.
Okay.
The
That's,
lack of
yeah,
love, the lack of love we have outside of us is equal to the degree of the lack of love we have inside of us, and vice
inside of
versa.
us. Yeah.
As above, so below. It's the same, just expresses itself through different symbols. So that's my answer to your first question. Second one, people pleasing. Why? Initially, honestly, looking at it through purely neurologically, is that's how we're hardwired. You stated you want to have a community and this and that, but we want to people please so we can be part of the community because how we process is initially through our hindbrain, and our hindbrain wants us to stay alive. We don't, that's not really an issue for us anymore.
Yeah.
for our quality of living for most of the world. But we wanted that community because that community is where we did trade, you know. That's where we got things from other people. That's where we got
We
protection. That's
bartered.
where we had
Yeah.
housing. You know, we didn't all just live by ourselves. So if we got kicked out of the community, we lost everything.
You could die.
So that's the initial hard programming of our nervous system is to people please. But then you grow out of that hind brain, the old brain, into our neocortex, where we can start asking better quality questions to have a better quality life. And the next thing is that, you know, we've been programmed to try to earn love because we all unconsciously know that that's the best feeling that we've ever experienced in our life is just the feeling of love. It doesn't get any better than that. And we're all trying to recreate that, but nobody has taught us how to recreate it. So we create it by acts of service. We create it by being a yes person. Yes, I'll do this for you. Yes, I'll do this for you. Yes, you know, and never creating a scene thinking that if, you know, even doing, I'm laughing, it's not really funny, but working with couples or, you know, individuals with a relationship issue, um, it's well, I'm trying to be nice. Like I'm trying to do these things. And it's like, you know, you go to a gym and you work out and you're like, I'm going to be really nice on you, bicep. We're actually not going to do anything to create too much work for you. I don't want you to get too stressed, bicep. It's like the bicep only gets bigger and stronger by ripping the muscle fibers and then they scar up. You don't get more muscle fibers, you rip them apart and then they scar up, and that's how you get stronger. A fucking relationship is the exact same way. If you never have a fight, if you never have a confrontation, if you don't have a stress response, it's not going to get stronger. And if something
But
doesn't
I
get
think there's a
stronger,
difference
what's it do? It
between,
fucking dies. Like
yeah.
we try to live this one-sided world, and that's what's fucking everything up. That's what's
But
creating the high polarization so that we have these really bad neurodegenerative diseases today.
I agree. I just want to say this though, because this is not advocating for dead end fighting or demand relationships, as our very good friends Paul and Stacy say, you know, do this my way and it'll be better. This is about constructive feedback and communication rhythms that allow you to stay on the same page but not avoid conflict, because as we've said in the past, conflict avoided is conflict multiplied. I think that people understand these principles when it comes to workplace environments. You know, they understand, like, if you're the employee, you want feedback. If you like your job, I should say, you want feedback, good or bad, because you want to know, should I get the fuck out of here? Am I doing a good job? Like, should I feel like, can I go home on the weekend and feel good about myself? Or is there somewhere I can improve so I can create a better work environment for myself? But it's like people don't take the same concept at home of, you know, the communication rhythms, staying consistent so everybody's on the same page. There's no mysteries, there's no stories being told in each other's head. You're communicating on a regular basis with a regular cadence. You're providing feedback, and in a work environment too, you're not like yelling at your fucking boss, and you're hopefully your boss is not yelling at you. You're not like bringing a shit ton of emotions to the table. Like you have to sit there with a poker face and take your feedback or give your feedback. And like in family dynamics or relationship dynamics, like what is it about that? Like we just are like, ah! Like it could have nothing to do with the person. So the point is that you're 100 million fucking percent right. It's just, but you don't fight for the sake of fighting. You don't like come and dump your day on your partner.
No,
This
it's like,
this
but
is about the of not avoiding conflict, because the conflict blows the fuck up later. It doesn't matter how good you think you are at hiding it.
so two things. One, the goal is always to be proactive. So we have a weekly business meeting, but we also have a weekly personal meeting. And, just from what we talked about, like two questions in that personal meeting is, what did I acknowledge that you did to show me love? That way she can actually be aware of what I perceived was her showing me love. And then another question is, what can she work on from my perception? So
Yeah, like where can
you're
we do better? Like and we
yep.
have to answer those questions for ourselves. Like it's not about me just ridiculing Nick. Like where can I do better? Like what am I proud of and what am I not? It's just like this isn't, you don't just have a meeting and just fucking wing it. Like this is one of the reasons why, like, we had all these people opt in. By the way, you guys can access our meeting, but everybody opts in for the free meeting, which we give it to you with all the questions. But then I'll have people tell me like, oh, I did it and this and that happened. And I'm like, literally, you need to get the videos. The videos are like $20. Like, get the videos of how to do it, because it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. Just because you have a meeting on the schedule doesn't mean it's going to be productive, because there's a strategic way to go into the meeting and bring a level of vulnerability, transparency, and master your communication with your partner.
And
You
halfway
don't
through,
suck at it and then you become good next week.
we leg wrestle. So, I mean, there's that. I'm just kidding. Well, we should
But
start.
some meetings are super, like some meetings we come to and they're super powerful and I don't want to say positive. They're just like we walk away like we're very grounded and we walk away feeling really good. And then there's some meetings that there's like tears and frustration, but at the end there's a
Alignment.
support, there's a collaboration, there's a solution, there's an awareness. And I think like sometimes, especially as women, we think that our husband should know what's going on in our head. Like he should know that I'm upset about this, or he should know that I'm having a rough time at work, or he should know. And then if he doesn't know, you're like secretly brewing, and then he doesn't fill the dishwasher properly, and you fucking lose your shit.
So reeling this back in, why we're having this conversation is that this is doing those steps, but it's also part of just the ALS Mr. Nice Guy. And this isn't just um, us coming up with this Mr. Nice Guy idea. Like there's been multiple different physicians, people doing research that's literally shown this statistic. But when you think about like the nice guy syndrome and the psychosomatic connection to it, like a nice guy is where what? Everything's calm. They're in Italian, I say va bene. It's just everything's okay. Everything's okay. And they don't allow themselves to have that expression. And
Which
usually
the symptom
there's
is loss of
it,
voice
lots of voice and
because
it's
of the paralysis of the muscles of the tongue and throat.
and that's interesting. I just thought of something else I'll throw out there. But that's when you that affects, I mean, you can break it down all of the things. So my brain was just going to too many different places at once. But it's like they have trouble grasping. So it's like they're holding on to something that's not allowing them to express themselves. There's always a counterbalance there. So like they're holding on to something. Usually there's stiffening of the muscles, specifically starting in the legs. So they have a shuffling gait. So they're not able to walk forward in life. Where are they not stepping forward? What are they holding on to? What are they not
Not
speaking
stepping into
up?
their truth.
And then you look at a lot of times when it gets um, even further along the line, it can have issue going up affecting the heart, cardiovascular. That's more neurologic, actually. I mean, you can look at it, self-love being going right to the heart, but it's actually going up, affecting more of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the main cranial nerve that goes in to innervate the heart, and it has a parasympathetic effect of calming. And you're like, well, the person is calm. Like, no, they look calm, but inside it's just like a bomb that wants to go off.
Yeah.
And that's the degree of the imbalance, which reaches the degree of the state of the disease.
And it's also you know, the two, as you mentioned, the innervation of like the heart and lungs is the mortality risk associated with ALS. But leading up to that, and this is how they rate it progressing, is the loss of motor control of the tongue, which is going to affect speech, can also start to affect eating. And then one of the others is, we had a gentleman that had to have a machine with him because he had no ability to swallow, and there was no proper control over the parotid glands. So he would overproduce saliva and he couldn't swallow it. And so he obviously had a feeding tube. He couldn't swallow foods anymore. And so when you get into the psychosomatics of that, and I'm keeping this really really simple for you guys. It's, if you're not going to speak up and exercise your truth or exercise your voice or stand for yourself and stand for your truth, you're mentally not speaking up, and that can manifest as a physical manifestation. If you can't swallow, digest, assimilate your reality, it's going to manifest physically. I know this could be like totally crazy for people to think like, holy shit, is that real? Can that really happen? And the answer is yes.
And there's, a quote unquote a right way and a wrong way to do things. It's not about, and we've seen a lot of this since COVID. Um, it's not a speaking up that you're right and somebody else is wrong.
Correct.
It's speaking up out of self-love is
Humble
this is
confidence.
this is just who I am. You're not pushing anything on anybody else. It's not a fight. And I think that's the problem that people think is that, well, what if I disagree? What if I do these things? Like I'm fighting. Like no, that's not fighting. That's just disagreeing. Like
Mhm.
we all have different set of values. We're half the world is going to agree and half the world's not. That's why there's always something to gossip about because there's always that other half truth. Um, so it's not attaching to thinking about speaking up or doing any kind of fight that's connected with it. That's why there's leg wrestling, but there's the way to do it to express um, that connection with your highest values, what's most important to you.
Well, and that's actually one of the things I think it could be a really good action item for those of you listening, is for those of you that are like, wow, this is amazing. This is really inspiring, but holy shit, where do I start? uh your values is key, because exactly what Nick was just saying is this is not about speaking up in an aggressive way, becoming the loudest person in the room, saying you should do this, you should do that. This is about what I call humble confidence. So being able to speak confidently, but in a very compassionate and humble way. So you're not throwing your ego around or throwing around what you think is the right way to live. You just have this humility about you. You know who you are at your core, and you know where to say yes, where to say no in your life. You know who you want to spend more time with, who you don't want to spend more time with. And it's because you know your values. You know who you are at your character, from a deep perspective. And so this is one of the reasons why we start with values discovery in our integrative medicine program. Some people don't always understand, why is this important? And it's because you need to know who you are as the foundation for the human behavior, mental, emotional work that we're going to do later. Because now, if you know who you are, you already have a level of awareness of where to say yes in your life, where to say no, where to spend more of your time, where to spend less of your time. You have a level of awareness of, where are you people pleasing? Where are you guilt and shaming yourself based off of what other people told you is the right way to live or the right way to be? So this is really, really significant. And if you can get to know this about yourself, there is a level of freedom that it creates that most people have not experienced in their lives and potentially will never experience in their lives. Did I
Yep.
make you emotional?
No,
Oh,
no,
you
it's
looked a
just like
little
this is,
emotional.
I'm always a little
I was like,
emotional.
did I get a tear? Come on. So we covered a lot of ground here, and I want to give you guys just like a breakdown of action items. So one, ALS is a complicated condition. Neurodegenerative disease is a complicated condition. And listen, I understand that if we're talking Alzheimer's dementia, a lot of times these are older individuals. These are older individuals that are very set in their ways. So you might be listening as an advocate right now. It's your mom, it's your dad, and you're like, I want them to try all of this. You have to understand if they wanted to, they would. And usually that's not necessarily limited based off of their mental capacity at this point. It's just if people wanted to work on themselves and they wanted to try something different, they would. So please do not get attached to other people's outcomes. It's their journey, not yours. So I want to say that. Number two is if you are someone that you feel like there is turmoil, turbulence when it comes to love with yourself and also potentially in your family dynamic or with your partner. The communication rhythms that we were talking about, we literally have this as a free downloadable option. We will put the link in the show notes. Get access to it. You really should get the video so you know how to do it. It's not about what you do, it's how you do it. For those of you really resonating with this last piece of, I don't know what I like, I don't know who I am, I don't know how to start this process. You need to start at the foundation, which is your values. And we have a course on that as well. So please, again, go to the show notes. The links will be there. You will have easy access to all of this. For those of you that are just like, I don't know where to start and I need your help, we got you because this is what we curate for the people that we work with. And, some people are the self starters. They want to do things at their own pace. They want to take the bull by the horns. And then some people are like, listen, I, I want to have the strategy. I want to do this in the quickest, most efficient way. And I want your help along the way. That's what we're here for. So we really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it shed some light on this condition. And I hope that it gave you hope that this isn't just bad luck, bad genes. It's not if it's in your family, it doesn't mean that this is going to happen to you. You are in the driver's seat of your outcomes, but it's not necessarily just about the physicality of these types of diseases. It's also about the mental and emotional layers that play into it. All right,
With
guys.
love.
We'll see you on the next one.